to the Free Kick Podcast. My name is Todd, and welcome to a early Thursday morning edition of the Free Kick Podcast. Maybe the first time ever. But José Nuñez and I said last night, you know what? Let's go ahead. Instead of doing a night podcast, our schedule is aligned to do a morning-ish show. So why not do something different and come on here and talk about last night's 5-4 penalty kick shootout win for the Philadelphia Union against Indy 11, the first US Open Cup win for the Union since 2018. And now that he's done taking a sip of coffee, he is José Nuñez. Jose, how you doing?
I'm all right, man. I've been awake. For those unaware, uninitiated, I have two children. One's 5, Rafael, and I have Benicio, who is 3. So those that are parents or thinking about becoming parents, no matter how late you stay up or whether it's, you want to do it or not, there's always routines in the morning. And I think I stroll. What time did you stroll in, Todd? Because I think you and I sort of got home at the same time. Obviously very different
12:40.
places. Okay. So it was 12:40. So by the time my eyes shut and I woke up, I think I was in bed about like 1:30 after taking the dog out one last time and just getting stuff settled. And then I woke up at 5:45 when Benicio, my youngest, was just talking from his crib, like asking to play or something like that. So been a long night, but what an exciting match. I think, Todd, it's probably fair to say we saw a lot of stuff, a lot of things happen that we didn't imagine that would happen in terms of Jovan Lukic playing left back or right back at one point. David Vazquez, who by all accounts we've been told has sort of jumped around different positions, played left back. And by my count, probably 3 or 4 hamstrings that were really, really tight by the end of that game. It's just quite a bit to unpack from last night.
Yeah, there is a lot to unpack. And like I said, first win since 2018 in the US Open Cup. First home US Open Cup match for the Union since 2018 as well. And I guess before we talk about this lineup and everything, the Union never officially posted the amount of fans in attendance, but Indy 11, I guess you had saw this, Jose. They came out and said that there was 8,633 fans in attendance last night for the Union's US Open Cup match. That is under 50% of Subaru Park's capacity. And I'm not going to lie, it did not look like almost 9,000 fans last night at Subaru Park. 2,000 if they were lucky. But I would say it was interesting, though, because obviously when you go into penalty kicks, the game gets louder. It was funny because Indy 11 won the penalty shootout, and they want to shoot towards the scoreboard and not away at the river end. And so you see all the fans running around down to the scoreboard, and this has happened in years past in the shootout. So this is nothing new for Philadelphia Union fans, but yeah, to say that there was almost 9,000 fans there at Subaru Park, I don't think so. And I do wonder, and maybe this is worth a question, asking somebody at the team, is that including all this season in ticket members? And there's just no way, Jose, that there's 9,000 fans there last night.
No, I don't believe so. And after I saw that figure, I did some calling around to people who would be able to answer that question. And it's tough to tell. There is so much at play here where there's the ticket exchange. When you think about season ticket owners that can sort of move that ticket around a little bit. So that's one thing. And I don't know where Indy 11 got this figure. I don't know if that's how I would think that's. I'm not good at gauging when you have these pockets of people. Obviously, the Sons of Ben or the River End, I should say, is one thing. And then right underneath us, Todd, by the press box, you saw some bigger pockets of the population, which could have been hundreds. I'm not sure. And then obviously behind the nets, I think it was most apparent. And who knows how many left, but once everybody shifted over to behind the net for the penalty shootout and you saw, basically that entire stand just sort of filled up. It's like, oh, okay, so there is a good amount of people here. So yeah, it was, I have a hard time believing that number, but if that's what it is, then fantastic. I think like many people will say, I wish it was more. And I can't imagine that it'll be more, or maybe, I don't know, Pittsburgh's probably a better draw in terms of away fans, and never mind people in the area that recognize the name versus Indy 11. But let's talk about last night, because I think that's probably the best way for us to spend the time here. Just not sure about that attendance number myself too.
Yeah, Mandy says, gonna try to listen while work. Thank you, Mandy, for chiming in. John O'Donnell says, good morning, fellas. What's up, John? Thanks for joining us. Drew says, morning, friends. Some extra coffee this morning. Yeah, you're absolutely right for all you coffee drinkers out there, or you can just stick to water and orange juice like me. So, but like you said, Jose, I mean, people want to hear about the game last night. They want to hear about, I think, the starting 11 is probably a good place for us to start. I think you can see this on the screen on courtesy by FootMob, but I also have it down below in the sidebar. And right away, I think the thing that sticks out to people is obviously going to be Cavan Sullivan. That's a big name for people, seeing him start his first Philadelphia Union first team match. But for me, I think the one thing that's probably the most intriguing thing on the night, and then maybe I would say Andrew Rick starting in goal, and we'll get to that a little bit later, because you had a question posed to Bradley Carnell after the match. Where's Andre Blake? And so we'll get into his comment to you towards the end of the show, I would imagine. But yeah, I think David Vazquez is probably the biggest surprise for me. Starting at left back, he's an attacking midfielder, but the Union subbed out rotated 9 players from their weekend game. Sorry, this was the midweek game. Their weekend game against Montreal, and David Vazquez comes in replacing Kai Wagner at left back. You have Makani and Jacob Glesnes. They retained their spots. They started against Montreal. Olivier Baizo comes in, starts at right back. You have Alejandro Bedoya captaining the side. Jeremy Raffanello, Jesus Bueno, Cavan Sullivan, Mikhail Ur, and Damiani up top with Andrew Rick in goal. But yeah, like I said, I mean, for me, I think the biggest surprise was seeing David Vazquez starting at left back. I thought, and we had talked previously before the match, Jose, that I thought we would definitely see Olivier Baizo when you have 3 right backs on the roster. This seemed like a good opportunity to get Baizo some minutes, but I thought we would actually see Frankie Westfield as a left back. But I guess with Frankie not starting this game, that tells you that Bradley Carnell is saving him for Columbus. And I would assume that Frankie's probably getting the start against Columbus over the weekend. But yeah, David Vazquez playing as a left back. That's a huge surprise, at least in my opinion.
Yeah, it was surprising to me too. And I thought he did fairly well. And I think as we were watching the game at some point, I think I tapped her shoulder and I said, and this is I think maybe we can break down the game when we get to it into like 2 halves, because I think that's the best way to go about last night. But I think midway through the first half, I sort of tapped your shoulder and I thought, Indy 11 is doing a really bad job of actually picking a side and just attacking, because you had weaknesses on both sides. I say weaknesses in air quotes, because obviously all of the players that the Union fielded are infinitely better than you and I combined. So top level, you either go to one side and you try to pick apart a Bedoya and David Vazquez partnership, or you go to the other side and you go to and try to pick apart a Cavan and Mbaizo partnership. So during that first half, Indy did neither. And I would have thought that the inexperience per se of David Vazquez at left back, at least I don't think I've seen him play left back at all for Union 2 or any match that I've watched, whether it's through VPNs for his U.S. youth national team appearances. I don't think he's ever actually played that position. So for him to go out and in such short, I don't want to say notice. I don't know what the word is or what I'm trying to say. So I apologize as I'm trying to like bring my thoughts together. I was shocked that he did as well as he did, especially against the USL Championship side that just, was so inept and without really a guidance or a North Star that entire first half. So kudos to David for getting it done and figuring it out for what did he play, like 50 or 60 minutes?
Ooh, FootMob doesn't even have the number. It's it seems like that. Maybe like I think 57
minutes is what I got here. Yeah. So for 57 minutes, I think he was absolutely serviceable. I don't know. I guess David would fall under the scheduled substitutions that Carnell spoke about
Yeah.
when you think about the 55th, but I don't know why. It's not, I guess at that point it was 1-1. They're trying to figure it out, but I thought he played absolutely fine. And I would have used a substitute on other legs that I thought would have came out before, especially with them holding the back of them.
Yeah, and Carnell had joked after the game that there's going to be a lot of ice baths for the players today, a lot of regens, because as we know, the Union have to quickly recover and turn their attention to Columbus Crew on Saturday, which is a huge match. First versus second place in the Eastern Conference. Will Daniel Gosling be healthy to play a role for Columbus Crew in that match against the Union? We shall see. But yeah, 120 minutes probably isn't ideal. You look at a player like Alejandro Bedoya going 120 minutes. Cavan Sullivan, I believe, played 20 minutes in this game. Mikel Ua, like you had mentioned, was pulling his hamstring a little bit. Oluwatu Makanya played the whole 120 minutes. And I know Jillian Almany had mentioned this on the One Team We Agree on yesterday. And we had touched on this too, Jose. I mean, losing Neil Pierre for 46 weeks, which Bradley Carnell said in his pregame presser, due to an injury he picked up with Union 2 against, did they play Chattanooga?
Chattanooga.
Yeah, thought so. Yeah, that's a huge blow. So you're down Neil for 46 weeks. You're down Jan. Now you only have two fit center backs in Makanya and Glesnes. And we know what happened with Jacob Glesnes a couple years ago when he was playing every single minute. Come playoff time, he gets hurt, and now he doesn't play against Cincinnati. And uh, it's just plug and play. And there was a question right here from, I thought I saw it here, maybe not. I thought somebody had asked, do we see Nathan Harry will play as, oh yeah, right here by Patrick Andrews. Do we see Nate playing center back on Saturday? Yeah, I mean, it's a possibility, right? But going an extra, 30 minutes because of extra time? I don't know. I mean, 45 minutes is good for Jacob Glesnes. I would imagine we see him starting because I remember Jim Curtin said this last year. Anytime that you would bring substitutes off the bench and they would play like 25, 30 minutes, that's the equivalent of a training session. So the fatigue's really not there as opposed to starting the match or playing 60, 65 minutes. And so we do know that Glesnes is or should be at least healthy for this game on Saturday against Columbus. But yeah, Makanya pulling his leg, and Bradley Carnell said there was multiple players out there doing the same thing. So maybe Nathan Harriel gets to start at center back, but that's a real big concern for the Union, only having two natural center backs healthy. Who else could you put back there? Frankie Westfield, maybe? Kai Wagner, I know we saw a few years ago, I think against Pumas in a friendly play as a center back. So an area that wasn't strong coming into the season for the Union, in my opinion, becomes a lot weaker now with Neil Pierre and Jan still out. And imagine if Makanya picks up an injury. What if it isn't just something like, yeah, he's just cramping? Like that would be worst case scenario for this team.
Yeah, it'll be really interesting, and I hope I'm available. I may have some work stuff going on for tomorrow's press conference, but how are these legs feeling, right? I think it was in the 80th minute we saw Owethu just cramp up, pull at his legs. Ua obviously came off when he came off. I think Raffanella was taking a while to get up on some of them. Bedoya, we joked, and can't imagine he's watching, but I can think that I think his leg probably feels like that GIF or that meme. And I know we spoke about it, where like the guy's eating like a turkey leg that was just like smoked for however many hours, and he just pulls at the bone and all the meat falls off. That's how my leg would feel, and he's not that much older than me at all. So I don't know.
Well, he said he was sore after the game last night.
Yeah. He said he was. I'm sure he was. I'm sure all those guys were sore. Indy, I think, took that hit to the side. It just seemed like there was just a lot of bumping and bruising, and you know what? Like it was a fun match to watch. All around, all things considered. So yeah, if Olwethu is indeed injured, I maybe makes you and I know you and I sort of question Carnell's substitutions, and obviously it's hard to predict the future, and gosh, glad that Glasnost was one of those scheduled substitutions, because imagine a world where he goes down and Onwefu's pulling his leg, and what do you do, right?
Jeremy Raffanello as center back like we saw in preseason.
God. Yeah, nothing against Jeremy, but that's probably not where he wants to be or anybody wants him to be. So, and shout out to him, man. I think, this is probably crossing boundaries of topics, but Jeremy Raffanello felt, and I saw him throughout the game just sort of like try to guide people, like very vocal and animated, that it's like, oh man, he's like taking a little bit of a leadership role in this game, and maybe doing a little bit more than others in terms of doing that. So kudos to him.
Well, how about this? I mean, I'm glad you brought up Jeremy Raffanello. So we saw him play this position last year, I think it was, away in Portland, playing as a deeper number 8, kind of playing as a playmaking 6, where he's sitting with Jesus Bueno last night and he's spraying the ball. But I do actually think that's a pretty good role for Jeremy Raffanello, and not one of those 2 outside 10s or a lone 10, just because he has the passing range, in my opinion. He can take those long shots. We saw a couple long shots last night where he tried to bounce the ball off the ground. And I kind of like that position there for Jeremy Raffanello. And you're right, Jose, looking at what he did last night on FootMob, 96 touches. And it did seem like the Union were trying to get Jeremy Raffanello on the ball as often as possible. And what that actually kind of reminded me of was what the Union did with Jovan Lukic. There's no surprise that Jovan has such a good passing range. He has such a good eye, where even last night he played a fantastic ball in, I think, the first half of extra time last night into Indy Vasilov. And then the goalkeeper for Indy 11 comes up with another great save. And I'm sure we'll probably talk about that goalkeeping performance last night. Fantastic performance from Reece Charles Cook. But yeah, I mean, Jeremy Raffanello was kind of playing that Jovan Lukic role. I don't know how you feel about that, but that's the way I kind of assessed his performance last night. And I think he did all right.
Raffanello? I think
Raffanello.
He did fantastic. Yeah, I think he did exactly what he was asked. And, I think it was, and I might be a little delirious, A, because I'm tired, and B, I'm trying to remember a night that we stayed up till midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the morning for Jim's press conference after that Portland game. But I think Jim at the time spoke about Jeremy and saying, he took the role and ran away with it and did very well. But does that mean that he's going to be a regular starter or anything like that? Absolutely not. He needs to continue to work, et cetera. But last night was such a great step to sort of show what I think a lot of people question when he got his contract extension, in a way of like, why are you bringing back this guy who has hardly seen the field? And obviously you need a range of players. You don't want to be top heavy like Miami and then see what they're going through. And you also don't want to be, Montreal either, and just have very, very low bottom spending groups like that. So Jeremy did a fantastic job yesterday. And I think he was just, I know you and I always question who either the Union PR bring out to chat, or who people ask to bring out to chat. But I would have loved to have talked to Jeremy. Not one that you hear from very often. And when you do, it's usually it should be because he's done something great. And last night was one of those games where he did great.
Yeah, and I think actually the last time that we saw Jeremy Raffanello speak to the media was against Inter Miami last year. And I feel like
when he did that? Is that when he made the comment of I'm just going to do the homegrown thing, or like the homegrown thing and not say a thing?
Yeah, I think I was the only one who talked to Jeremy Raffanello. I think I requested him, and he was shocked that like somebody from the media wanted to talk to him. And you're right. I mean, 120 minutes last night, played a fantastic game. Probably should have been one of the players that was requested. But look, for people that are unaware, we got to speak with Andrew Rick, who was excellent after the game. Cavan Sullivan, I didn't speak to because they had like multiple players out there at the same time. So it's like you pick and choose. Jacob Glesnes was out there, and then Alejandro Bedoya. So spoke with Bedoya and Andrew Rick. But yeah, I mean, Jeremy Raffanello probably should have been out there, but it's okay. The Union are playing a round of 16 game against Pittsburgh Riverhounds. I don't think that date's been confirmed yet. I know I went on the U.S. Soccer's page and they say that game is going to be May 19th, but that's incorrect. I saw on Google it was May 20th, but the Union haven't officially said anything. I don't know if people listening or if you've seen anything, Jose, but we do know that the Union do play the Pittsburgh Riverhounds. First time ever, first time matchup. And I know Mike Thomas had said here on on the chat, he said that finally the Pittsburgh match we've been waiting for. Too bad it isn't an away day, and it is
Hold
kind
up.
of crazy good.
Is that? Can you put up Mike?
That
Can you
comment?
pull up this? Yeah. Is that your wife, Mike?
Yeah, it's his wife.
Was not aware of your game.
Mike Thomas. Yeah. So the 20th or 21st, Drew says in an email that the Union sent out would be the game. But yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be an intriguing matchup, and maybe we'll see Jeremy Raffanello have a good game against. I'm so distracted by Pittsburgh Riverhounds, and maybe Jeremy Raffanello gets to come out and speak to the media. But yeah, just getting back to this lineup, because Jose definitely threw me for a little bit of a curveball there, and trying to get myself back online after that comment. Yeah, I mean, all in all, really good performance. And I guess we can switch topics. I know we talked about Raffanello. We talked about David Vazquez. Yeah, we'll talk about Cavan Sullivan, because there are some people in here who I think want to talk about Cavan, or maybe they're just listening because of Cavan. And imagine if Cavan Sullivan would have been one of the players last night, Jose, that would have had a penalty, and what if he would have been the player chosen to take the game-winning penalty? Would have been insane. But the lone Union goal last night was scored by Alejandro Bedoya. That was his first goal since May 4th, 2024. I don't know why I have it 2014 on there. That would have been crazy. And yeah, seeing Bedoya start this game, captain the side, and yeah, scored their first goal in the 6th minute. And you had brought it up, Jose. That started because of Bruno Damiani. He doesn't get a goal, doesn't get a ton of chances created for him, but the movement's off the ball. This is what good strikers do. And it's little details that fans don't pay attention to, because, oh, he's not assisting, he's not scoring. And it's the same thing you can argue about Mikel Uhre. These guys know the system so well. It's the movement that opens up space. Damiani's run takes out both center backs for Indy 11, and now it leaves Alejandro Bedoya 1v1 against the right back, and he beats him on the header. And it's a great cross in by Olivier Bizo. And yeah, it was good to see Alejandro get his first goal since May 4th, 2024. And that was his 30th goal in all competitions in his Union history. Been with the Union since 2016. And yeah, again, Bedoya told us after the game he was so tired, so exhausted after that match. But yeah, you could tell once that ball went in the back of the net and the way he celebrated, that meant a lot for him. And he's obviously aware that his playing time's going to continue to dwindle, I would imagine. He's not going to be playing as much as he has the last few years, just because he's getting a little bit older. And the one thing with Bradley Carnell is he does use the substitutes, he does rotate the squad, but this was significant minutes for Alejandro Bedoya, and I was shocked that he played 120 minutes. Bradley Carnell had said last week that Bedoya missed the game against DC United because he had the flu. And so to see Bedoya healthy, playing 120 minutes, and I do wonder if this game is in the middle of the summertime, Jose, when it's just humid as all can be, maybe we see even more injuries last night, and maybe Alejandro Bedoya doesn't go 120 minutes. And so it was a beautiful night for soccer, but I think Bedoya played really, really well last night, and it was great to see him get his first goal since May of last year.
Yeah, it was nice to see him go out and run. I know that there's been speculation here and there when he's not showing up on rosters, etc. Whether it was, I think Bradley had sort of dubbed it as, something that was prearranged way long ago in terms of the one absence. And then obviously the most recent one with genuinely just being ill and trying to push through to be there. And obviously it's probably better to not keep him around the rest of the team when he's had recently flu-like symptoms. But for him to go out and play this 120 minutes, I was shocked that he wasn't a scheduled substitution, never mind a leading into the extra time type of substitution. So kudos to him. And again, taking advantage of what's put in front of him, especially with that play there in the goal, with allowing Bruno to do his thing, allowing to help the team in ways that are not typically accounted for in a stat sheet, right? Of taking 2. And I think there were even situations, man, where I wonder what, and I don't know anybody in Indy 11. And if you're somebody who knows somewhat from the technical staff at Indy 11, please reach out anonymously, confidentially. I want to know what the game plan was, because there were so many times where Bruno was just being even triple themed. I think Indy 11 may have watched the clip of the goal that he scored against DC United and said, man, we got to put 3 bodies on the back of this guy because he is just a force to be reckoned with. So he drew so much attention that it allowed other players to maybe shine a little bit more, and maybe also felt wasteful that they weren't up 2 or maybe even 3 going into the half, which obviously became the tail of the tail.
Yeah. And I mean, you had talked about it earlier in the show where it's crazy when you look at Indy 11, when they could have exploited either side, the left or the right, where it was open. And I had made the comment to you, it just seemed like in the first half specifically that Indy 11 weren't up for those 50-50 challenges. You know, the Union were winning. It felt like every single loose ball. And I had said, if you're Bradley Carnell, you're pretty pissed that you're only going into half up 1-0 when the Union had so many chances. And I have it listed below the screen right there. The Union created 33 shots last night, 11 shots on target, and to only come away with 1 goal is a little bit disappointing, I would say. But at the same time, we talked about him. Reece Charles Cook, the goalkeeper for Indy 11 last night, 10 saves, for sure. Player of the match, kept Indy 11 in it all night long. I mean, the Union did. 3 balls with Jovan Lukic. It was good crosses into the box. It was good combination play inside the box, 1-2 touching. And yeah, Charles Cook, fantastic game for Indy 11. And the Union probably do feel a little bit hard done that they couldn't get multiple goals in this game. But sometimes, you know, good goalkeeping is going to take you that far. And even Charles Cook got a hand to Jovan Lukic's game-winning penalty, and probably feels a little bit bad that he couldn't save that one, keep it out of the net, because of how well he played in regulation, how well he played in extra time. And when you have a goalkeeper playing as well as he did last night, yeah, losing a game like that, it does sting a little bit. When 10 saves, that's a lot of saves, and just the constant pressure the Union was bringing. The Union finished the match last night in terms of possession, 66-34. I mean, the Union, it felt like we're in Indy 11's half for a majority of that game. And when you have to be locked in that defensively, I mean, credit to the coaching staff for Indy 11 for being that disciplined, not losing their shape, picking the moments when to hit the Union on the counterattack. Andrew Rick even came up with a couple big saves last night for the Union. Obviously, he comes up with that save in the penalty shootout. And Bradley Carnell had joked after the press conference saying, we told the guys that he's going to give us one because he usually saves one in shootouts with MLS Next Pro, which I think does give the Union a slight advantage, where we all know after the end of 90 minutes, it goes straight to penalties in MLS Next Pro. So Andrew Rick has a lot of experience. But yeah, the goalkeeping display that we saw from Charles Cook last night, fantastic for Indy 11. And if you're an Indy fan, you probably feel a little bit hard done just seeing your goalkeeper play. I would imagine probably is one of his best career games, and doing it against a side like Philadelphia Union, doing it against a Bruno Damiani and U.S. men's national team legend Alejandro Bedoya, an up-and-coming Cavan Sullivan who led the Union in shots in the first half with 5. And I really did think Cavan was going to score last night, but yeah, fantastic goalkeeping performance. And you had mentioned it, Jose. Yeah, there was moments in this game where it felt like a little bit boring, but so many shots, so many chances by the Union in this game, and only to get one. Again, credit to the goalkeeping last night by Indy 11.
Yeah, if anything, I think the beauty of this tournament in a way too, and Leagues Cups, especially with the amount of eyes that go on it, and obviously the international nature of it, giving some of these players the stage to sort of make a name for themselves. Obviously, Union faithful and us in the press know who Andrew Rick is, but you think about Cook. Is it Charles Cook?
Charles Cook. Yep.
Yeah. Man, a performance that. And what's the saying? He played on his head, I think is typically what he was just unreal in terms of keeping things out of the net and some of those crosses that were being put in at the end where it was a tight angle and he was just, pushing them over. And had he not done so, it would have been a little bit more dangerous. He just had a fantastic game. And you're right. He probably feels like, oh, you guys couldn't come up with something else offensively to get us over the line. Probably feels a little hard done too. But yeah, I can imagine that more eyes were on that player than anybody else on that field. It was just a fantastic display by Indy's goalkeeper.
Yeah, absolutely. So talked about Bedoya. Now let's go ahead and change topics to Cavan Sullivan. And Mike says it right here. The pops anytime his names are getting eye roll worthy at this point. Speaking of Cavan Sullivan. And yeah, I kind of feel the same way, right? I don't know about you, Jose. I'm sure people reach out to you all the time for podcast appearances or you do shows and everything. One of the first questions I always get asked is about Cavan Sullivan. And it's a credit to MLS and the Philadelphia Union for marketing the hell out of this kid. But again, he's 15 years old. Right here, somebody else had said it, that maybe it was Mike too, saying that Cavan isn't going. Yeah, he did say, can we agree that Cavan isn't going to save the Union anytime soon? At least I get the hype, but let's be real. And that's 100% spot on. I personally get tired of answering questions about Cavan Sullivan because he's 15 years old. But at the same time, I do think he had a pretty good game last night for the Union. Like I had mentioned, he had 5 shots in the first half, 6 shots total. And it just seemed like last night, Indy 11 were giving Cavan his way. And so I'll go ahead and play Bradley Carnell's comment on assessing Cavan's performance and then tactically what the Union did with Cavan and Alejandro Bedoya. So this is what Carnell had to say assessing Cavan Sullivan's first career Philadelphia Union start.
Yeah, we had to be a little bit creative in the way we try to set him up, and we knew we were going to have to make certain substitutions at certain, minutes and time frames, and then we have to start managing Mika, Jacob and what have you. So, Cavan wants to play. He wants to express himself. He wants to get on the pitch. He wants to prove himself, and he wants to prove he belongs with the team. So, he did a great job. He's young, fit, hungry. So it was fun to watch him tonight going against men.
And so, yeah, Bradley Carnell says that it was fun watching Cavan play against men. And we all know, you've talked about it so many times, Jose, I've talked about it, that MLS Next Pro is not at the same level as MLS. And it's not really the same level as USL, I would argue, too. And so then after Carnell answered, how he would assess Cavan's performance, he asked about what he did tactically with Bedoya, with Jovan, with Cavan during last night's game.
No, I mean, the first half or the whole sort of 60, 70 minutes, we had him inverted slightly. So, left foot coming in on the right side and Ale Bedoya the same thing. And then the more crazy the game got, we wanted to get, overloads on the side and the wide areas with Cavan and Kai and then with Ale. And then we needed Jovan to overlap as well when Baizo couldn't go. Just trying to create those crossing moments. We know we're very good at crosses, and I think we created so many real good chances. And unfortunately, we didn't get them over the line. But I was happy with the chance creation when we got that overload. But yeah.
All right, so one thing I want to mention real quick, and then I'll let you go ahead and take this, Jose, how you would assess Cavan's performance. But I think credit needs to be given to Bradley Carnell for his tactics. I think that was a really, really good tweak, playing Bedoya and Cavan inverted last night. And the Union did such a good job getting Cavan on the ball pretty often in the first half. And then credit again to Indy 11 for figuring out a way how to shut him down and not allowing Cavan to just be dangerous around the box. I mean, there were so many times Cavan was on the left-hand side cutting inside the right. I'm like, they're just giving this kid so much time and space to shoot. But one thing that Bradley Carnell should get credit for is his tactics with his coaching staff. And it does seem like they approach the games. They have a specific game plan, not saying that Jim Curtin didn't or other coaches don't, but like it's pretty clear and obvious what their game plan is every single game. And you can notice the little tactical changes, whether it be, changing players out of position, whether it be, twinkling the formation a little bit, having players drop a little bit deeper. And yeah, I mean, all these different kind of combinations. Credit to Bradley Carnell for, I would say, obviously, or honestly, that maybe he's a little bit more analytical than Jim Curtin, and analytics maybe play a little bit more into his decision making. I mentioned a couple episodes ago, Sean Rooney, one of the analysts for the Union, sits on the bench with Union on that technical box area and everything, and he's always looking at the tablet. And that wasn't really the case with Dean Constalis, the former analyst for the Philadelphia Union. I know he would always be up in the box. And so maybe analytics plays a little bit more into Bradley Carnell's decision making than what it did previously under Jim Curtin. But again, credit should be given to Bradley Carnell and his coaching staff for their tactical decisions. They definitely seem more than not to get their decisions correct. But again, I'll switch it back to you. How would you assess Cavan Sullivan's performance, Jose?
I thought he did fantastic. I think it gets lost on people, and to me specifically, yes, much like you, I sort of grow tired of having to answer the questions about a 15-year-old and whatnot. But then watching games like yesterday and thinking of, again, completely unrelated, but like my own experience playing with older people when I was growing up and ultimately whatever playing later, like when you're that young and you're playing as a 15-year-old with like high school kids, right? Or even like borderline college and summer league, which is what we did out in Governor Mifflin in the Reading area. Like we were ninth graders or going to be ninth graders playing against juniors and seniors in high school. Whenever I had a bigger guy come at me, or like playing adult league as a sophomore in high school, it's like your eyes just grow big, right? And you just sort of like, I don't like, you just sort of have this, like, you can't make decisions. You're sort of thinking about what the physical punishment is that you're going to get from this guy who's going to come and try to get stuck in with you for the ball, etc. But Cavan did fantastic dealing with a lot of that. I think there were some tackles where like, oh man, I hope he's okay, that we watched yesterday, especially once they were, I guess it was the first half going, or was it the second? Yeah, second half going towards the river end. Yep. Just where I kept on thinking, oh, that probably hurt. And sure, it hurt, but he was able to rebound from him and get back up and play. I would go ahead and just add that his first half was certainly better than his second. Mm-hmm. I feel like that's probably the way that we can put it across for everybody on the team that started the game. But for him to play 120 minutes and really put a showing onto what he can do against grown men, granted, USL Championship side, not commentary on USL, but realistically, when you think about the pyramid, they're supposed to be not as good as MLS. And that's ultimately what happened in terms of the penalty shootout. But he hung in there and he did well. That it makes me wonder, should this reporting from Fabrizio Romano be true? You know, what does July look like for him once Manchester City is in town for their match or their Club World Cup run? It sounds like off of the Italian that Cavan's going to have a part in that training. Is that just for him to dip his toes into Pep Guardiola tactics? How is that going to confuse things with Bradley Carnell, which are completely different, like a 180 from one to the other? So yeah, Cavan did fine. And in terms of the analytics that you asked, like I think we used to say that the book, and maybe it was Mike and myself or you and I or all three of us or more people, but like, people used to think that, the book was out on Jim Curtin's tactics. I think that was the common phrase that I kept on hearing. And maybe I thought so, but with Bradley, it's like, exactly how he's going to do it. Exactly what he's aiming to do with certain portions of his play, but he still, I don't want to say gets away with it, but he still gets it to work. And it's the little tweaks that he's doing. And it's so apt of you to even mention the difference of, having an analytics person on the bench versus at the very top of the stadium by the press boxes, right? Maybe that is the difference, or I don't know. I remain impressed by Bradley, and I'm intrigued. We have heard, you and I, from a lot of people, I think even some within this viewership today, of, yeah, it's cool that they beat Montreal, or yeah, it's cool that they beat YXZ team, but like, I want to see them beat Columbus and Miami, etc. What is going to be the talking line on Bradley Carnell should Philly win this weekend against Columbus, right? What is because that would be the first win in 4 games against them, if I recall, because they played 3 last year, lost all 3. Yep. Are people suddenly Carnell believers, or is there still going to be doubt on him, right? I'm intrigued. I'm so intrigued for what happens this weekend.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, Union took care of business last night. Credit to them. And obviously, this game against Columbus is huge. First versus second in the Eastern Conference. 12 games into the season, a huge game this is. And I've talked about it the last couple of episodes where, okay, it's great that the Union take care of business against Atlanta. It's great that they take care of business against DC. Great that they did against Montreal. You beat the teams you should beat. But now when you're Columbuses, you're into Miami's, you're Cincinnati's, you have to face them. Does this team still look as good? And the depth, again, proves itself last night against Indy 11 and USL squad. But the big test is this upcoming weekend against Columbus Crew. We'll do a match pregame show. I mean, a match review show later on. I'm sure Mike Barrera and Jose, myself, and whoever else joins will do a post-game show about Columbus after that match on Saturday. And we'll see. I'm sure that's going to be one of the talking points, one of the main talking points, just assessing how the Union fared against one of MLS's best teams. But before we talk about your question, Jose, Andre Blake's latest injury, uh, do you think, in your opinion, the gap between the USL and MLS is getting bigger? John mentioned it at the beginning of the show. MLS won 15 out of the 16 games against USL. The Union should make the final 8 with the ability to rotate against the last USL team. Just looking at last night's results, you had on Tuesday, Charlotte beat North Carolina 4-1. DC United, shout out Jacob Morel for scoring against Charleston Battery. Another golazo by Jacob.
Yeah.
They beat Charleston 2-0. Nashville beats Chattanooga 1-0. New York Red Bulls go to Colorado Springs switchback in elevation and win that game 4-1. Anthony Fontana scores on that game for the switchback. Back-to-back games now, Fontana has a goal with them. You have Tacoma Defiance losing to Portland Timbers 3-2. Pittsburgh Riverhound, the only USL team last night to get a win, upsetting New York City 1-0 in the 96th minute. Crazy set-piece goal. New England beats Rhode Island last night 2-1. Minnesota beats Louisville 1-0. Orlando City absolutely destroyed Tampa Bay 5-0. You had Chicago defeating Detroit 4-0. St. Louis defeating Union Omaha 2-0. FC Dallas beating AV Alta FC 3-1. Austin comes back and beats El Paso 3-2. Jack McGlynn scoring a golazo against Phoenix Rising with Houston Dynamo. I think that goal might be better than the goal that he scored against DC United. Fantastic hit by Jack. And then you have San Jose defeating Sacramento Republic 2-1. So do you think the gap's getting that much bigger between USL and MLS, Jose?
I don't think I'm ready to make that statement just yet. I think that the context that's missing on some of these results is how many of them had to go to extra time, right? And how many of those teams actually had to win it by penalty kicks or something miraculous or whatever. So I think the competition last night, especially with Indy, was very good considering who was on the field. I know I joked with you in the press box of, man, it's such a shame that the Union don't have the break the glass in case of emergency for like a Danley Jean-Jacques to come in and just sort of tear it up, because he would have had a field day in that midfield yesterday in terms of what he can do speed wise and movement and vision, but even defensively and you know what he provides. But I don't think I'm quite ready to say that, the gap is getting bigger or anything like that. But sure, if you're looking at the number specifically and just like, 1,000-foot level of X teams, only one team technically defeated an MLS side. Like, sure, I guess it does display that. But I think once you start digging in a little bit deeper and you start saying, well, Philadelphia put on this side and New York City FC didn't have Matt Freese on net. And, you start thinking about what actually is the finer detail in all of it, and maybe a harder conversation than just flat out saying yes because of X.
Yeah, exactly. And again, I mean, I didn't look at the lineups for those teams. I don't know if USL clubs really rotated. I don't know if they rotated over the weekend in their USL Championship matches and whatnot. But look, the Union could have been one of those teams last night that got upset by Indy 11, but they find a way against Indy in penalties, winning that 5-4. But the last thing that I want to talk about here, because, there's no need to have an hour podcast on this match last night, is another injury to Andre Blake. Bradley Carnell says after the game that he's not too concerned, but I don't know, Jose. 12 games into the season now for the Union in all competitions. Andre Blake injured yet again. Was injured already earlier this season, and we saw Andrew Rick start a game or two for the Union. I I don't know what to make of that, but you had asked Bradley Carnell after the game, and this was clever for you. And I made a joke to you. I said, "You want to go fishing because it seems like you're pretty good at setting the bait and the hook." You had mentioned, yeah, is U.S. Open Cup Andrew Rick's tournament now? And Bradley Carnell, he found a way around that, and he eventually admitted that Andre Blake was hurt, and so you followed up with that. And this was that whole interaction with Bradley Carnell last night.
We can evaluate and assess. I think we want to win our next game, there was a couple of things going on with Dre, so hopefully nothing too serious, and we're all good to go. So we want to win the next game, I'm sure Dre will be fine by Saturday.
In terms of a small injury, something went on with Dre?
Yeah, he just a management thing. It's fine. Yeah.
Just a management thing. I mean, Bradley Carnell didn't seem to be too concerned there, but I guess we'll see this Saturday against Columbus Crew. But I think the one good thing is Andrew Rick, we had mentioned it at the beginning, was just riding on that adrenaline. He was so happy talking to the media last night, joking about, he would have taken a penalty if he was asked. He would have went right down the middle. And it was good to see Andrew Rick so loose, and he's gotten so much better in the last year. I mean, last year, I think it was against DC United, he got his homegrown contract down in DC, and going from that time with the media to where he is now, he's taken so many leaps now and just feeling so much loose and so much more open talking to the media. At least that's the way I assessed it. But at the same time, no offense to Andrew Rick, he is no Andre Blake. And seeing Andre Blake injured again, 51% of the games last year missed from Andre Blake. Maybe it's starting to get concerning, Jose.
Yeah, I mean, the clip sort of speaks for itself. And, my line of questioning was intentional. I think how I operate some of these things. It wasn't a happy accident that we got there. Probably just leave it at that. But I hope that Andre's doing well, and I think matches like Indy 11, and then the previous one for Andrew, Andy, whatever you want to call him, Rick, against against Chattanooga, having gotten a hold of an entire replay. Andy was unbelievable, and then I think the Union even put a quick excerpt of his saves against Chattanooga, which tells some of the tale, but his distribution, his etc. He was fantastic. So I'm just so glad that he got back-to-back games technically to be able to build off of it. That I hope that Andre's healthy, but shit, the curiosity in me, it's okay, he played against MLS Next Pro just now, and the progression, I guess, is what I'm trying to describe here. Played against MLS Next Pro just this past weekend. Did great. Defeated a USL Championship side, despite not taking a penalty kick, keeping a penalty kick out, and making unbelievable saves to keep the team in it. Left stranded on that goal. I don't fault him at all for that clean sheet being taken away by that goal. And now 1 second, I would be so curious to see Andy Richter, as Mike Thomas says, to get a chance against a team like Columbus, right? And hopefully, I hopefully not out of necessity and just solely because Blake is out, et cetera. But I think you and I can agree that we're starting to see beyond Andre in a way, and probably what should have been done for a couple of years now, especially with the cadence of the injuries, et cetera. But I want to see a world, and I think it benefits Philadelphia and it benefits the sport to see, okay, now there's somebody who's young that is better than Blake at this age, right? It just continues to grow and build, et cetera. That I think Andy will get there. Is just, can he be afforded the opportunities that are not MLS Next Pro? And I still stand by this, Todd. I don't think Andrew should be playing MLS Next Pro. And I know that Oliver's there and the drop-off is big between Andre and anybody, but between Andre and Oliver, the drop-off is the delta is just too big to deal with. And that's Andy's role. But Andy is at a stage now where especially after these 2 games, and certainly saw some flashes last year, that he should be loaned out to go play championship. He should be out and about playing more consistently, not once every 4 to 5 games getting actual experience. Or God, if there was no US Open Cup, I don't know that he really would have played much this year outside of the random injury or the occasional international match. And I know I've been ranting for a little bit, but I am very passionate about that. I wish the Union would do more to loan out these players.
Yeah, exactly. And you kind of feel bad for Andrew Rick, where the more and more you look at it, that Oliver Zemla deal, no offense to him, but it gets worse and worse, where it is literally stopping the development of Andrew Rick, where I agree with you 100%. I think a CJ Olney, I think Cavan Sullivan, I think a Andrew Rick, I think all of them have graduated past MLS Next Pro. That league's not going to get them any better. They're essentially just playing it to stay match fit. But how much better is that making you in your development? Not much. And because Oliver Zemla isn't a number 2 goalkeeper, that forces you to hold on to Andrew Rick in the organization, because yes, you want to play him in MLS Next Pro, but he's essentially a backup goalkeeper. And Andre Blake's not going to miss too many games because of international duty. Well, he'll only miss games because of international duty and injuries. That's it. And so that's why you keep Andrew Rick around, because you don't trust Oliver Zemla. And so, I don't know, maybe the Union go out in the summer and address goalkeeper, and then maybe they allow Andrew Rick to go out on loan. But I agree with you wholeheartedly that he needs to be playing consistently. He needs to be playing at a higher level just to help his development, because we saw it with Matt Freese, perfect example, sitting on the bench for all those years under Andre Blake. We knew Matt Freese was a good goalkeeper, but you don't want to have another Matt Freese situation with Andrew Rick. And so I do think the Union have to go out and address the goalkeeper situation this summertime and allow Andrew Rick to play at a higher level to continue his development, because Andre Blake signed through 2026 with an option for 2027, I believe it is.
And I just looked it up. Yeah, that's exactly it.
And the future looks like it's Andrew Rick's once Andre Blake's time's done. But he's not going to get better being a backup goalkeeper, playing in MLS Next Pro. He's got to play at a higher level. So we'll see what the Union do in the summertime goalkeeping department. I hope they go out and do something. But you were mentioning Andrew Rick getting a win in MLS Next Pro, beating an MLS Next Pro side, beating a USL side. And if he starts this weekend against Columbus and defeats Columbus, he might be, and somebody can check me on this, he might be the first player ever in a week to beat an MLS Next Pro side, a USL Championship side, and an MLS side. I don't know how we would find that information. We would obviously have to look at, I think, past U.S. Open Cup games and whatnot, but that would be a pretty cool feat for Andrew Rick, right? To go through all these different steps and whatnot. And yeah, this is nothing to me. And what? Now is Andrew Rick suddenly too good for MLS? But yeah, Andrew Rick, phenomenal game last night for the Union. Came up big, couple saves in regular time, big save in the penalty shootout. And like Bradley Carnell said, this kid's always going to give you one. And just speaking to him after the game and seeing the big smile on his face, and that's a tall kid. I swear, every time we talk to him, he gets taller and taller. I'm like, what are they feeding him?
He doesn't even look tall. And like, obviously from the press box, everybody looks small. But there's Jesus Lord, that striker yesterday looked like he was 6'7", and I don't know if it was the proportions of his legs. He was only 6'3". I say only. I'm a 5'10" man, okay? 5'11" with the right pair of shoes. And if I was on Tinder, I'd probably lie and say I'm 6 foot. But that striker yesterday, dude, like, must have been he looked like he was 6'7", but all that to say that, like, Andrew Rick must be 6'2", I would think. 6'3", maybe. Like, he just doesn't look that tall, but I think that's also because we're so used to seeing Blake, who is way taller. So yeah, he was buzzing, man. Andrew Rick was just all smile, sort of like had a balance and a pep to his step. You know, we asked him about, or I asked him specifically about sort of the moment before we're going into a penalty shootout. You know, what does Phil say to him? And of course, it's like, this guy goes this way, this guy goes this way, this guy goes this way, and that's great. But like, I'm sure that there's more that's talked about. You know, like, go out and do it, that type of thing, and just I would have loved for him to have taken a PK yesterday.
Me
That would have
too.
been comical. That would have been incredible.
Look, and he said he was confident. So Andrew Rick's listed on the Union's website as 6'2". That was last
I
year.
don't
So
believe that for a second. He looks taller than 6'2".
yeah, he does. He does, and he's definitely growing into his body now. But I again, as we wrap up the show, I mean, a lot of credit's got to be given to Phil Whedon, the director of goalkeeping, the assistant coach, Union's goalkeeping coach, and Ross Kane. Union are so blessed with two excellent goalkeeping coaches, and yeah, it's no wonder why Andrew Rick's at the level that he's at right now because of those two guys. And I know Andrew Rick gets asked about those guys quite often, and he's always singing their praises. But these are two really, really high figures in the Union's organization, and whenever the Union go out there and get a goalkeeper, you got to feel good that they're going to develop well under both Phil and Ross Kane because they're excellent. And they played a big part in Andre Blake's development since Phil Whedon's been here back in 2020, I believe it was, and Andre's taken his game to the next level since then. Andrew Rick continues to develop into a really, really good goalkeeper. And so, yeah, I mean, the Union are blessed with good players, but they're also blessed with very, very talented staff. And that's pretty much everything I have for this game, Jose. Almost an hour for this, which I wasn't expecting. But hey, look, I think the listeners do. And 220 people listening to the show at 11 o'clock in the morning, where we did not advertise this at all. Well played to you guys for finding us on Twitter and Facebook and checking us out, leaving your comments. But Jose, anything else you want to add to this before we plug social media?
No, I think it's just a busy week and it's going to continue to get busier. I give kudos to you for your pre and post match articles. I can tell you that MLS, in terms of writing for this weekend, has Philadelphia against Columbus as the priority match. So I'm sure if unless it's a 0-0 boring ass game, expect something from me about the Union against Columbus, since the league is excited about it and has dubbed it as so. And I echo your sentiment, man. I think it goes under the radar and often in the shadows just how fortunate the club and the fan base is to have some of the staff that roams the hallways of the Union facilities, whether it's at the stadium or the power complex or whatever you want to call it, the Wizavazos Bank field house, like just an unbelievable talent that even you and I yesterday, Todd, spoke about. Just seeing and knowing some people that have gone on to move on to different ventures after the Union, how well they're doing, how well they're thriving. They're in places to make big decisions. They're doing incredible things. So the Union are serving a purpose, both in keeping good talent in terms of the staff, but also allowing them to go and swim freely if they so choose to want to and do it. So nothing else to add. Just a great point from you there.
Well, I appreciate that, Jose. Every now and then I make great points. But before we end the show, I do want to give a shout out to Steve, who talked to Jose and I after the game, coming up to us and didn't recognize the faces, but said,
shout out.
I recognize that voice. And so shout out to Steve for listening to the podcast and recognizing Jose from his voice and saying, yeah, I listened to you on a podcast. And you were like, yeah, I'm on his podcast. He's like, wait. Yeah, you guys do a podcast together. You guys do a great job. So it's always nice running into you guys in public and hearing your praises, or even people that want to leave negative comments. We're here for both of it. But the fact of the matter is, you guys check out this podcast pretty much weekly, and I appreciate the support, and I'm sure Jose does as well. And obviously, Mike Barrera over at AAT Sports across the pitch. Doing a fantastic job with that, and really, really grateful for the opportunity anytime I get to join you guys over there, Jose. But this fan base is definitely blessed, I would say, with some really, really great content, with a lot of people just pouring a lot into covering this team. And it is nice to get a little bit of appreciation from you guys, whether it be in public or in the comments with you guys on YouTube and Twitter and Facebook. But Jose, where can people find you on social media?
You can find me at Jose R. Nunes 91, where you will see my work linked to my Substack. I just put a little piece about Pep Guardiola and what it means to him and Manchester City to come to the U.S. for the FIFA Club World Cup. Still working. There were some scheduling issues for me and the club in terms of getting Bruno Damiani behind the microphone or in front of a microphone. And then the U.S. Open Cup matches made it very difficult to get Anthony Fontana. But those are two interviews that are coming up here soon. And Corey Burke remains as one of the most difficult people to nail down for an interview. And I don't know if it's the club just not interested in letting him talk to me, which is totally fine. I know I spoiled his signing per se. I think I sort of just used his own spoiling of his own signing, but maybe can be attributed to me. But more to come from me here in the coming weeks and I'm trying to find, if you're somebody who wants to send me to Rhode Island to cover an international soccer game, reach out. Puerto Rico and Nicaragua are playing in Rhode Island. I want to get there in some way, shape, or form, and it's not cheap, and I have a place to stay. But if you want to help fund a little push here to get me out to Rhode Island, let me know. Give me a shout.
Could possibly be a union connection as well. So always union connections everywhere you look. And don't let Jose fool you guys. You know, he's making his ultimate goal to interview Pep Guardiola once he's in town. And I think Pep would love to sit down with Jose and pick Jose's brain, not Jose pick Pep's brain. But if you guys aren't following the podcast on Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook, follow @FreeKickPod, wherever you get your podcasts, The Free Kick. Check out the YouTube channel, live every single podcast, youtube.com/FreeKickPod. Check out the goals breakdown video there as well. Just a reminder, only doing the goals breakdown video for MLS games only. And you guys can go ahead and check out my writing or the goals breakdown or the podcast all in one place, thefreekick.substack.com. Mike says if the Union, if Saturday doesn't go well, people might melt down. Yeah, I could definitely see that with this fan base. John says you need to do a pregame in the parking lot. Jose and I actually talked about doing a show in Union Yards, but we need Wi-Fi. That's the biggest thing about Chester is the Wi-Fi is not great. So that's why whenever we do the post-game show with Mike, we do it from the stadium just because of the Wi-Fi. So if we can find a way to get Wi-Fi, we'll do it. Yes, Jose?
Guess how much they just re-released shout out to my contractors, MLS. They just released an update as of May 1st, what the rosters look like, updated now that the window's closed. GAM available by the Philadelphia Union after Daniel Gastag left. Can you guess the number?
I'll say 2.2 million.
No. $873,000, which is actually still a sizable amount of GAM.
So the Union, I think you can put up to $2 million, I believe, in transfers. So the Union only decided to put 600. Were they at 200 something? I forget what they were at previously. So yeah, they obviously didn't opt to put the whole $2 million into that. So that might not go over well with this fan base that they're pocketing a little bit of that money, but hey. Whatever. Yeah. So I guess I have a post here with the updated roster profiles, and hopefully we get the MLSPA numbers here in a little bit, because I'll be curious to see what some of these guys are coming in at money wise. Jovan Lukic, a Daniel Gazdag with Columbus. Do you think Alejandro Bedoya went down a little bit less? Probably. But regardless, yeah, should be a busy week. Looking forward to this game against Columbus Crew on Saturday. Thank you guys once again for joining in the comment section. Jose, thank you so much for making a late morning, early afternoon show. But with that said, my name is Todd, and this is the Free Kick Podcast.